Your shift starts in 20 minutes, and you're still hunting for your work boots when the phone rings. You almost let it go to voicemail. You pick it up anyway. It's your accountant, a woman you've paid $300 to file your taxes for the last 2 years, and her voice has a shake in it you've never heard before. She says the acquisition offer is real. She says the buyer wired the earnest money overnight. She says, if you sign by noon, your business, the one you built out of a garage with $2,000 and a used laser cutter, is worth $1.1 million, and it's yours. All of it. No partners, no debt. You sit down on the kitchen floor because your legs stop working correctly. Your mother is asleep 2 rooms away. She cleaned hotel rooms for 11 years to keep you in a house with heat. Your father drives a delivery truck 6 days a week and has never once, in your entire life, taken a vacation. Nobody in your family has ever had more than $8,000 in a bank account at the same time. You know this because you've seen the statements, the overdraft fees, the calls from collections that everyone pretended weren't happening. And now there's a number on a screen that could erase all of it. The accountant says you need to decide fast because the buyer's lawyers added a clause overnight, a non-compete that locks you out of your own industry for 5 years, and a clawback provision that lets them take back 40% of the money if certain revenue targets aren't hit in year 1. Your lawyer, a friend of a friend you hired 2 weeks ago for exactly this kind of moment, tells you flatly, sign today under these terms or lose the deal because the buyer has 2 other targets lined up and no patience. You have 11 minutes before you have to leave for a shift you're never coming back to, one way or another. You call your best friend Marcus, who quit his job 8 months ago to run operations for you for a salary you couldn't really afford, on a promise you might not be able to keep. He answers on the second ring. You tell him the number. There's a long silence, and then he says quietly, don't let them scare you into signing something stupid. You realize sitting on the floor that the decision isn't really about the money anymore. It's about who you become in the next 10 minutes. You call the buyer's lead lawyer yourself. Your voice doesn't shake, which surprises you. You tell him the clawback comes out or there's no deal. He laughs, says, that's not how this works. Says, you should be grateful for the offer at all. You hang up on him. 90 seconds later, your lawyer calls back, breathless. They blinked. They cut the clawback to 20%. And shortened the non-compete to 2 years. It's not everything, but it's real, and it's on paper, and you have 4 minutes left before the offer expires. You sign. The moment your name lands on the last page, something in your chest that has been clenched since you were 14 years old finally loosens, and something else, something colder, tightens in its place. You go into your mother's room. She wakes up when you sit on the edge of the bed. You tell her the number. She doesn't understand it at first. She asks if that means you can pay off the truck. You have to say it 3 times before she starts crying, and you realize you are the first person in the history of your family, going back as far as anyone can trace, to hold 7 figures in your name at one time. Not borrowed, not owed, yours. You expect to feel like you've won something. Instead, by the following Tuesday, you feel like you've been handed a loaded weapon with no manual. The money hits your account in 3 tranches, and the first tranche alone is more than your parents earned combined over the last 4 years. You don't tell anyone the exact number, not even Marcus, because you've already learned in 6 days that numbers change how people look at you. Your cousin calls for the first time in 2 years to ask about a business opportunity. An old manager from your first job messages you on LinkedIn wanting to reconnect. You start reading every text twice before responding, hunting for the angle. This is the part nobody warns you about. The arithmetic of trust gets rewritten overnight. You move your parents into a new house, cash, no mortgage, and your father stands in the empty living room and doesn't say anything for almost a full minute. And you understand that his silence is the loudest thing you've ever heard from him. But 3 weeks later, he tells you, almost apologetically, that he still wakes up at 4:15 every morning out of habit, still reaches for a uniform that isn't there anymore, and you realize money didn't fix the part of him that spent 30 years believing he had to earn the right to rest. You can buy him a house. You cannot buy him permission to stop being afraid. Meanwhile, the acquisition isn't finished. It's a beginning. The buyer's revenue targets are real and looming, and if you miss them, 20% of what's left in escrow disappears. You're contractually required to stay on as a consultant for 18 months to hit those numbers, which means the company you built is no longer fully yours to run, but you're still the one who has to make it work. You start pulling 60-hour weeks again, except now The stakes are a number you can see updating in a portfolio app on your phone, and every bad quarter feels like it's draining directly out of your family's new house. You make your first real mistake in month 4. A competitor undercuts your biggest remaining contract, and in a moment of panic, you authorize an aggressive discount to keep the client without running it past Marcus or your CFO. It saves the contract. It also blows a hole in the margin targets the buyer set, and for 2 weeks, you genuinely believe you've torched 20% of your own payout out of fear. You don't sleep properly for those 2 weeks. You learn, in a very physical way, that having money doesn't insulate you from consequences. It just raises what the consequences cost. You claw the margin back through a painful renegotiation you should have done from the start, the one Marcus suggested in the first place, and you sit with the fact that your instinct under pressure was worse than his. That's a harder thing to accept than losing money. It means the confidence the deal gave you isn't the same thing as competence, and you have to keep relearning that distinction every time the stakes go up. Your family starts treating you differently in ways that are hard to name. Your mother says "we" less and "your money" more carefully, like she's afraid to touch it. A younger cousin who used to ask you for advice on classes now asks you for a loan, framed as an investment, and you have to decide, in real time, whether saying no makes you the person who forgot where you came from, or whether saying yes makes you the soft target. Every relative learns to aim at. You say no. It costs you a relationship you're not sure will ever fully repair, and you carry that the way you used to carry overdraft notices, quietly, at 2 a.m., turning it over. 9 months in, you understand something you couldn't have understood the morning your accountant called. The first million doesn't end the pressure. It just changes its shape. Before, the fear was that you'd never have enough. Now the fear is that you'll lose what you have, or worse, that you'll become someone unrecognizable in the process of protecting it. You watch other founders who cashed out before you, some who disappeared into yachts and bad investments within 2 years, and you understand exactly how that happens, because you can feel the same current pulling at you every single day. The consulting contract still has 9 months left. The revenue targets are still aggressive. There's a new competitor circling your old clients. And last week, your lawyer flagged language in the original agreement you missed the first time, a clause that could complicate the final payout if the buyer decides to interpret it uncharitably. You haven't told your parents about that clause yet. You're still the first millionaire in your family. Nobody can take that sentence away from you. But tonight, you're back at your kitchen counter, laptop open, reading contract language for the 4th time because the number in your account was never the finish line. It was the entry fee.